Hello and welcome back to Old Soul Podcast. My name is Prejudice, spelled B-R-E-I. Thank you so much. Today's summary/commentary is going to be about the film Pride and Prejudice. This is not Pride and Prejudice and zombies, nor is this the 1990s version of Pride and Prejudice. I am specifically talking about Pride and Prejudice by director Joe Wright. That was released in 2005 with a PG rating and a runtime of 2 hours and 9 minutes. So I've done a quick short video of this way back when I started my podcast. It is one of my favorite films of all time. Yes, and every time I watch it, I have such a warm and fuzzy and comfy feeling, although there are definitely aspects in the film that are a lot more sad and, not upbeat. But ultimately, if you've heard about Pride and Prejudice or seen a million of the adaptations of Pride and Prejudice or just anything by Jane Austen in general, you kind of get the gist of it. So it's a story about these sisters who are basically being shown off by their mother because ultimately during this time frame all women were really having to think about was marriage and children, which personally I hate the thought of that, but that's what the reality was. And our main character that we follow through most of the film really is Elizabeth Bennett. This is the Bennett family, the Bennett sisters, and we see the different personalities of the sisters, and we see that Elizabeth is closest to her sister Jane. I think they're around closer in age than her other younger sisters, and the younger sisters have been presented to society even at the ages of I believe it was 15 or 16, so they're really young, but it wouldn't have been considered young for the time frame in terms of we are presenting our daughter at this ball and she is able to get married if we so believe that you're good enough for her or something like that. So yeah, Lizzie and Jane are much older and also looking for marriage, but their sisters are as well, and their mom is really a pain in the butt and kind of embarrassing, but I do find myself being sort of empathetic toward her because she is just looking out for her daughters, and since she doesn't have any sons, if her husband and their father were to die, they couldn't be left any property or anything because they're women, so nothing can be in their name, so they'd be pretty fucked. So really she's looking out for her family in general. She's just really annoying while she's doing it, and it's embarrassing. And the family feels like a real family. The way that director Wright really has these beautiful painting scenery, works with the camera. All the camera work is beautiful, and just the characters and the story in general is so great. But you know what's really great? The writing. I don't know who adapted the script. I'd have to go and look into that, but they did a beautiful job. The script is so fun and witty, and I love the bickering and the back and forth between Lizzie and Mr. Darcy, who eventually will become her fiance and eventually her husband, although we don't really see in the film their married life much. We just see the leading up to them getting engaged. It's sort of like enemies to lovers. Yeah. But the enemy part is really a lot of miscommunication and confusion that could have been avoided, but there's gossip and all the things. And so as we journey, and again, we are getting bits and pieces of each of the sisters, specifically with Jane. There's this thing with her and Mr. Bingley, who's an eligible bachelor who makes £5,000 a year, which is really impressive during this time. He's also adorable and likable, and Jane is this shy butterfly, flower, whatever, but she seems really sweet. And that's how Lizzie ends up meeting Mr. Darcy when Bingley has recently moved to the same location as the Bennett family, or town or city, whatever you want to call it, and then they are at some ball, and that's when they meet him, and everyone's heard that he has arrived, and they are all wanting to be the next bride. And her mom has her eyes like literally hawk eyes on this guy. So yeah, and then that encounter of the meeting Bingley, who brings Darcy as a friend, isn't great. He says stuff about Elizabeth, like she's tolerable, but Jane's a beauty, and so on and so forth. Basically talking shit about her behind her back. And then Lizzie goes back and basically lets him know that she heard him in like such a subtle but still in your face way. It's so good. It's so fucking good. And a lot of this stuff is so good that I can't really explain it. You have to watch it to really understand what I'm saying. But I will do a quote segment so you can kind of hear some of the bickering and back and forth that goes on in the film. And there are other things going on. So it does seem that the girl's father is actually a pretty great man who really cares about his daughters, which is not common, I'm sure, but he's great. The family seems, I wouldn't say that they're rich or anything, but they seem okay. They don't seem like super poor, but they're definitely like not the top of the top, it appears to be, at least in the film. It's been a while since I've read the book, so I'd have to reread that to really get the thorough context of that. But yeah, that's kind of how it feels. And there's a lot of engagements of people getting proposed to and declining it, which is like a major deal back then. Like, you declined it. And then there's like the marrying of cousins or attempted, which is insane, but okay, that's what they did back in the day. Vomit. Or the attempted, oh, Mr. Collins, that's all I'll say. Mr. Collins gives me the ick. And then we have, what's her, I can't remember if Charlotte is like Lizzie's dear friend or also a cousin, but yeah, someone let me know because I can't remember. But either way, they're really close, and Charlotte is so realistic and honest. She's sort of like a conscience, and she has like an iconic moment in the film that I also feel like encaptures how it would be to be a woman if you weren't super rich and you weren't pretty. You basically had to take what you could get, which is really sad. But I think Charlotte like grabs that and reclaims it for what she can, and I think that's sort of beautiful. And I just think that the film has a great ending. It wraps up everything nicely. There's drama, there's love, there's enemies to lovers, there's family and sisterhood, and basically it's Pride and Prejudice. If you've heard of it or any inkling of it, you should kind of get the gist of what it is, but ultimately this is what it is. And the beautiful music, camera work, and art, portrait painting like visuals make it incredibly stunning. And this was another comfort film for me. Okay, so now I'm going to go into my quote segment. Bear with me, this is going to be a long one. Mr. Darcy, you must know, surely you must know, it was all for you. You are too generous to trifle with me. I believe you spoke with my aunt last night, and it has taught me to hope as I had scarcely allowed myself before. If your feelings are still what they are last April, tell me so at once. My affections and wishes have not changed, but one word from you will silence me forever. If, however, your feelings have changed, I will have to tell you, you have bewitched me, body and soul, and I love, I love, I love you. I never wish to be parted from you from this day on. Also, to marry for love, that's a big deal. Even now, that would be a big deal. Okay, Elizabeth. And that put paid to it. I wonder who first discovered the power of poetry in driving away love. Mr. Darcy. I thought that poetry was the food of love. Elizabeth. Of a fine, stout love it may, but if it is only a vague inclination, I'm convinced one poor sonnet will kill it stone dead. Mr. Darcy. So what do you recommend to encourage affection? Elizabeth. Dancing, even if one's partner is barely tolerable. Elizabeth. Charlotte. Charlotte. My dear Lizzie, I've come to tell you the news. Mr. Colin and I are engaged. Elizabeth. To be married? Charlotte. Yes, of course. What other kind of engaged is there? Lizzie looked shocked. Charlotte. Oh, for heaven's sake, don't look at me like that, Lizzie. There is no earthly reason why I shouldn't be as happy with him as any other. Elizabeth. But he's ridiculous. Charlotte. Oh, hush. Not all of us can afford to be romantic. I've been offered a comfortable home and protection. That's a lot to be thankful for. Elizabeth. But, Charlotte, I'm 27 years old. I've no money and no prospects. I'm already a burden to my parents and I'm frightened. So don't you judge me, Lizzie. Don't you dare judge me. Go watch Pride and Prejudice. You won't regret it. And have a good day.